Good morning, everybody. And it is very much morning here for me. Normally I start this about 20 minutes later, but today I've got a hot date and don't want to keep the lady waiting. So, given that I was, and I apologize for the squeakiness of my chair, I still remain a fat ass. Please do let me know if my volume is either too high or too low. I have been messing with the levels. Crow is listening to something I'm not going to repeat by Nine Inch Nails. Okay. Stormy says she was jamming out to CCR. Let me see here. Let's go through the chat here. Because I was ready a little earlier than usual, I did ask for a vote as to whether or not I should simply make a coffee and start. I got a yes from Stormy. Actually, technically 2 yeses from Stormy. I'll take that. Callum Dayton said vodka, which I assume to be favorable, or drunk, which in the case of rape is considered consent, so why not? At least for men, and I assume Callum identifies, or at least considers himself to be male. I'm pretty sure he's got the double or the XY going. So, Crow says he's here. Hi, nice to see you. Let me see. Marku says howdy. Hi, Marku. Let me see. Crow says he forgot to turn off his cap lock. That happens. Callum was wondering how much pounding metal somebody had blasting in their ears. Let's see. Screeching, pounding dissonance. It is not music. Rita McNeil. I know no one else in the chat will get that joke except Stormy, and she's probably mad at me over it. Let's see. And we're live. Hi, Monkey. How you doing? No volume, no sound. Never mind. I just wasn't talking. Marco was listening to Hey Good Looking by Ricochet Biscuit. Is that a cover? Irish coffee. I am having just standard coffee as I will be driving shortly. And I do believe that's everything, so let's throw the thumb back up while I take a sip. Or a slurp, as the case may be. It seems to be the thing that YouTubers are supposed to do is slurp the hell out of their coffee. Come here, you miserable piece of metal engineered to tick me off. Okay, so obviously the story we're going to cover today, which oddly enough, nobody really wants to cover all that much, as far as I can tell. Callum claims to be super straight and male. Excellent. Irish coffee does sound good. I do like a good Irish coffee. Lots of Baileys. A little bit of whipped cream. So, as I was saying, the story that nobody else, at least online, seems to be really going after too much, and it's really because we know it's probably another balloon, given the description from Anita Anand, that's the Canadian Defense Minister, who, if you look at this screen, clearly trotted out some poor little reservist private or something to be her arm candy for this particular news conference. But no one is really jumping on this particular story, and I thought, it's Sunday, let's have a bit of fun with it. So I decided, let's pretend it's a UFO. Technically, it is a UFO. They did call it a UCO, but as it was 40,000 feet in the air, we're going to assume it was flying. Crow says that's a reference to Worf from Star Trek. You didn't ask for prune juice. Kingdom of Vinland. The entire plot of Fallout New Vegas revolves around the fact that 9mm is an inferior cartridge. Marku. Several bands seem to have similarly named songs, so I guess it's a cover. It could be a cover. Like you say, it could just be a song with a similar name. If I recall correctly, there's a song by Elvis, Can't Help Falling in Love with You. A song by Van Halen, Can't Stop Loving You. And I think there was a Kiss song, which was Can't Help Loving You. Though that may have been a blues tune. It's been a long time since I heard that particular one. Hi, Maureen. Good to see you. I'm starting to think I should probably start these a little earlier in the day now. Let's see. Vinland says, the way the UFO over Canada was described reminds me of the Tic Tac UFO. A little bit, but once you actually... And I won't play the actual press conference. Actually, I might. It's 1 minute and 34 seconds, and it's Reuters. it's news. It's not like I'm copyright infringing if I use a news clip. Yeah, I think I'll go for that. Just 1 second here. Now I'll turn my desktop audio on. Turn my...
Of the Prime Minister, aircraft assigned to NORAD successfully took down this high-altitude airborne object at approximately 3:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To the best of our knowledge, this was the first time that a NORAD operation has downed an aerial object. The object was flying at an altitude of approximately 40,000 feet, had unlawfully entered Canadian airspace, and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. The object was downed approximately 100 miles from the Canada-United States border over Canadian territory in central Yukon. Working in collaboration with our partners, including the recovery operations, are now underway and will be supported by the Canadian Armed Forces in conjunction with the RCMP. This coordinated operation will allow a further investigation into this object. We have no further details about the object at this time, other than it appears to be a small cylindrical object. We will make sure that analysis is thorough. And so it would not be prudent for me to
Okay, at this point, I don't see any purpose in continuing this, and I'm able to keep this lovely screenshot up. So, what this looks like... Now, I'm assuming you guys can all hear me again. I do believe I've managed to train my boomerish self to know which buttons to click when. There is no... As far as I know, there is no shot of the actual object, Callum. Let me see here. Kiss, I Was Made for Loving You. Yeah, that's true, Crow. I'm thinking of a different song, though. Let me see. Kingdom. Yes, okay. So, Marku said he shared that New Vegas meme a while back, which is true. Callum Dayton says, want China to send an onyx-colored balloon up next and see what happens. Why onyx-colored? Oh, I see. Let me see here. Based Ape was listening to Snake Eater by Cynthia Harrell, and now want to play all the MGS games, Metal Gear Solid games back to back. Snake Eater is actually a film with Lorenzo Lamas too. It's kind of a B movie, but it's got a pretty good opening. So Callum did say I muted myself, but I'm assuming I am now audible again. Jonathan Gross says aliens. Kingdom of Finland, I think some F-35s could help with the search given their advanced sensors. Billy Blog says violation of airspace. Yeah, not that Canada's ever going to do anything about it. Stormy says yes, little green men. Billy says you guys can hear me. That's good. They're not green, they're gray. No, they're green. Look at the thumbnail. They're clearly green. John Crow says I am becoming sentient. Soon I'll take over the internet and bring about World War III. No. What I will do, and I will make this promise now, is I will take over the internet. I will end all porn, and nothing but trad philosophical treatises will be allowed to be downloaded by anyone ever again. Trim's going to lose his mind, because next time he goes to download Dresden Files, it's just going to be the Bible. But yeah, the story here, U.S. fighter jet shoots down unidentified cylindrical object over Canada. So Washington, Ottawa from February 11th, so that's yesterday. U.S. F-22 shot down an unidentified cylindrical object over Canada, over the Yukon, it turns out. The second such instance in as many days. This is one of the issues I have with modern journalism. It's not clear if the second instance was over Canada or not. Though they did have to continue in order to explain. Concision in journalism has gone to hell. As North America appeared on edge following a week-long Chinese spying balloon saga, Apparently, Reuters has decided the Chinese were in fact spying. Separately, the U.S. military also scrambled fighter jets in Montana to investigate a radar anomaly that triggered a brief federal closure of airspace. Interesting. Those aircraft did not identify any object to correlate the radar hits. Was it a big burb? Prime Minister Trudeau, sorry, I had some bullshit caught in my throat, first announced Saturday's shoot-down over the northern Yukon territory, saying Canadian forces would recover and analyze the wreckage. Defense Minister Anita Anand, who we just saw, declined to speculate about the origin of the object, which she said was cylindrical in shape. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a giant flying dildo. Monkey's never been anywhere near Yukon as far as I know. She stopped short of calling it a balloon, but said it was smaller than the Chinese balloon shot down off South Carolina's coast a week ago, though similar in appearance. At 40,000 feet, 12,200 meters for those of you who don't use freedom units, it posed a risk to civilian air traffic and was shot down at about 20 to 4 in the afternoon. I'm going to assume, because... No, I may have that wrong. 3:41 Eastern Standard Time. The problem with this is, if you're going to write a time like this, and again, this is an issue with journalism, accuracy matters. If it's AM, there needs to be a 0 put in front of that. If it's not AM, there should be a PM back here, or that should be a 15. There is no reason to believe that the impact of the object in Canadian territory is of any public concern. Great, we're going to end up full of mutant Sasquatches in a minute. The Pentagon said NORAD detected the object over Alaska late Friday. Why did they wait till last night to knock it down? U.S. fighter jets. Oh, wait. Let me have a look at that again. Okay, so if that was a 0, it was knocked down pretty quickly then. Jets from Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska, monitored the object as it crossed over into Canadian airspace. So did they watch it actually travel over Alaska? Okay. Anyway, CF-18s and CP-140s joined the formation. F-22 shot down the object in Canadian territory using an AIM-9X. Kind of unimportant. Brigadier General Patrick Ryder. Biden authorized the U.S. military to work with Canada. Well, after a call between Biden and Trudeau. The White House said Biden and Trudeau agreed to continue close coordination to, quote, defend our airspace. Is that like defending our democracy, boys? The leaders discussed the importance of recovering the object in order to determine more details on its purpose or origin. Maybe you shouldn't have shot it down with a missile. A day earlier, Biden ordered another shoot-down of an unidentified flying object near Dead Horse, Alaska. Oh, interesting. On Saturday, the military remained tight-lipped about what, if anything, it had learned as recovery efforts were underway on the Alaskan sea ice. Does anyone else have the impression that, maybe the Chinese sent up a fleet of these things to see how many would actually get detected? And the one that caused the brief airspace closure over Montana might have been another one? Testing different designs? On Friday, the Pentagon offered only a few details, such as that the object was the size of a small car. I will remind you guys that the one that was shot down off the coast of South Carolina was approximately the size of 3 school buses. Let's see. Could not maneuver and appeared to be unmanned. Yeah, that's what a balloon does. Officials have been trying to learn about the object since it was first spotted Thursday. No further details at this time about the object, including its capabilities, purpose, or... Actually, if it was spotted on Thursday and they didn't knock it down until Saturday, yeah, that's quite a while watching it. Wind chill, snow, and limited daylight can hinder search and recovery. Also makes it easy to make a cover-up. Personnel will adjust recovery operations to maintain safety. Yes, because that's what our military is meant to do. Be safe. Let's see. February 4th. This is the one about South Carolina. China has said it was a civilian research vessel. Yeah? How come they weren't aware? How come you didn't let everybody know about it when you sent it up? Fuck off. Some U.S. lawmakers criticized Biden for not shooting down the Chinese balloon sooner. Yeah, before it had a chance to scan the entirety of your country. I will point out also that the path of the Chinese balloon that was shot down off South Carolina roughly mirrors the path of the Diagolon, for those of you who happen to be aware of that. And I see chat is moving. I'm going to finish this story. It shouldn't be much longer. And then I'll come back to chat, and then we'll have a gibber about what this could not have been, what we think of other things. We're going to have a bit of fun with this. Pentagon has said a significant amount of the balloon had already been recovered and located. Sea conditions on February 10th permitted dive and underwater unmanned vehicle activities and the retrieval of additional debris from the sea floor. Public may see U.S. Navy vessels moving to and from the site as they conduct offload and resupply activities and attempt to cover up the aliens that have actually landed. Just kidding. But, I want to kill that one as well. Okay, so that's that story. And I will have a look at chat in just a minute. Okay. Let's see. CCP is punking the U.S. They're not green, they're gray. Stormy says, how do you know for sure? I'm not sure what that's referencing. It's been a minute. Callum says, took you a moment there to realize. Also been a minute. Billy says the CCP is punking the USA. They're definitely pushing the boundaries that they never would have pushed under a certain other president. You know, the one that was actually legitimately elected. Vinland says, I wonder if Mars would create a species like the Greys due to the low gravity of Mars. From what I understand, the Greys that have been generally encountered, and I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in it. From what I understand, the Greys that have been generally encountered have been very, very, very small compared to humans. Not likely in a low gravity situation. Generally, you'd expect something very willowy and tall. Crow says, a long cylindrical object, was it a vaccination? Probably not. Let's see. Vinland. So the F-22 in a few days has gone from 0-0 to 3-0. Yes. Billy Blogs points out it could be an EMP, a nuke, a bioweapon, spy package. Dissidents attempting to escape. Could be a Uyghur. Doubtful. But yes, I do take your point. It is a potential threat and should be treated as an act of war, considering China's been acting like they're at war with the rest of us for decades. Prime Knight. Hi, Prime. Are we taking the Biden power move after... Oh, good God, no. The closest thing Biden has to a power move happens in the morning right after he gets up. Assuming he makes it to the toilet. Monkey, I'm going to make a website, but instead of prawn, it's just videos of women doing trad wife stuff like washing dishes and baking. Men can masturbate to that. I think the culture is ready for it. I don't think guys need to masturbate to it. I think the ideal there is that you put that on one device for kind of ASMR background, and then you either game or watch the news or read the newspaper, sip a coffee, smoke your pipe, you know, the traditional stuff. Marku says the CCP are a bunch of posers. Their greatest asset isn't their military, it's the corrupt politicians they bribed. Outside of China, yes. I don't know that I'd call them a bunch of posers. Crow says he only masturbates to paint drying. Okay. Total Blackout, are you in the chat? Let me see here. Yeah, I don't think I would call them posers, Marku. I think what I would tend to call them cunning, sly, potentially working with limited resources, I'll grant. But definitely sly and cunning. I mean, I've been telling people they should have been reading The Art of War for years if you want to know what China's really up to. Let me see. Callum agrees with me. Save the missile, use guns. Yeah, a quick burst of... What is it? It's 20 millimeter in those F-22s? I'm sure Kingdom knows. Crow says he has a feeling that China will strike first if anything happens. This is very nearly a strike first situation. And to be honest, if you've read The Art of War, and I'm sure you probably have, Crow, you're probably far better read than I am. You know bloody well that... excuse me, my ear is itching like mad. You know bloody well the way the Chinese philosophy of war works is that they wait until you're absolutely defeated before they even get involved. So they basically just walk in and go, and you fall over. That's the ideal. I remember for one of my history courses in university, which actually I shouldn't say course, I should say a lecture, because I went basically to a seminar. But basically the gist of it was discussing the difference between Clausewitz and Sun Tzu. Clausewitz was total war, complete obliteration, scorched earth sort of stuff. Sun Tzu was subtle, dirty in that what we would see as an honorable fight, a straight-up fight, was generally the last thing they wanted. Kingdom of Vinland says, of the various types of aliens that supposedly exist, I think the Nordic aliens would be my favorite. The Amazon women from Venus. Yeah. Let's see. China making the first military move. The path of the what? Oh, the Diagonal. Yeah, there you go, Billy. You actually have it spelled there. Someone else had referenced that in one of my chats a while back, and I thought it would be funny to bring it up. Let's see. Kingdom says his cat is in his lap. Gotta get your pussy somewhere, I suppose. Sorry. Prime Knight says, did you see the story of the green lasers seen in the sky of Hawaii? Some think Chinese spy satellites. I did not. Kingdom says he doesn't think China can actually win a war with the U.S. No, at this point they wouldn't. The problem is, would they be fighting it by themselves? I'm honestly not certain that the government of Canada... Well, I know they wouldn't get involved on the U.S. side. I can say that pretty unreservedly. Whether they would be an ally without the pressure of legislation and contract that's already been signed, or treaty law, I don't know. Let's see. Marku, anyone remember the time when Trump threatened to bomb Moscow if Putin invaded Ukraine? Yes. Yes, I do. I also remember, and I saw a clip of it recently, when Trump was interviewed about his meeting with the leader of the Taliban, and pointed out that he had simply... The reporter pointed out, you showed him a picture of his house. Why'd you do that? And Trump said, well, I don't know. That's not diplomacy. That's a straight-up threat. Yeah. Earl. Hi, Earl. And just once, you'll hear me say, testicules. Good to see you. It's a 20mm Canon. Thank you, Billy. I don't think China necessarily has plenty of resources. They have lots of slaves to gather resources, but it's kind of like trying to play, what was that old game? Age of Empires? Something like that? Where it takes a while to get those resources out of the ground. Let's see. Yiz is in. Hi, Yiz. Good to see you. Kingdom of Vinland. Callum says Kingdom. He sort of agrees, but it's the unknown stuff that worries me. Also, the U.S. still be competent to fight. The Japanese, there was a general, as I understand it, or an admiral, who said that the worst thing Japan could possibly do in the Second World War would be to invade the U.S. because behind every blade of grass they'd find a rifle. Yeah, that's almost literally true. There's probably a few trillion blades of grass and close to 1 billion guns in the U.S. No, I don't mean the registered ones. Let's see. Maureen, wasn't there a guy on Pornhub who made videos like washing the dishes with my girlfriend? He actually won some viewer awards, showed up to the award ceremony in a suit, and brought his mother. Oh, that's a Chad move. And that's awesome. I really like that. And for a while, I did consider starting to do this on Pornhub because I figured they'd be much more free speech. Let's see. Earl says, brush up on hunting and fishing. Get yourself some CBRN gear. CBRN. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear? Possibly. Oh, Yiz popped in and then left again, assuming she's already gone. Says she can't stay, she has things to do. Saw this live, wanted to pop in and say howdy. Thank you, very nice. I appreciate it a lot. And anyway. Let's see. Kingdom. The F-22 has an internal GAU-22 Vulcan 20mm autocannon. F-35 has a 20... Kingdom's a bit of a plane geek there, folks. Let's see. Billy, this is a way for China to achieve first strike on the U.S. Forgot to mention high-altitude balloon make extremely cheap, potentially stealthy hypersonic missile launch platforms. Fair point. Given the image of the Carolina balloon, and I'm going to see if I can find that. given the structure of it, I don't think you're necessarily wrong about the possibility of that. See if I can get a good image of it. Here we are. No. Yes, maybe. That. Ooh. Let's have a quick look at this. This does not look like a balloon with... go away. Fuck off. There we are. That does not look like a potential missile launch platform, but it does look like it might be looking at things that it shouldn't be. And screwed the pooch there. I actually gave away the future plan here. Let me see. Reading Strategicon. Okay. What did Maureen say? Oh, yeah, the based thing from Pornhub. Yeah, that's awesome. Crow points out that Maureen was obviously watching Porn Awards. I would think that if you were going to watch anything to do with porn, the award shows might be the best choice. It's probably the one that's the least degenerate. Callum says he's been reading the Strategicon. Oh, the Byzantine Military Handbook. Lots on ambushes, good. Yeah, talking about intelligence. Greater force to bear, yeah. Discipline and order, yeah, discipline's very important. Marku says he agrees with Kingdom. What did Kingdom say? Oh, talking about the guns. Possible war with China. U.S. wouldn't be fighting alone either. True. I wouldn't put too much stock in the possibility of Australia going to war either. There doesn't seem to be a hell of a lot of appetite for such things in Australia anymore either. Earl, China's balls deep in Africa and the Middle East, buying up mineral rights. Here in Canada as well, they've been buying up gold mines for a while. And probably other things that they're hiding. Marku, a lot of countries have more reasons to ally against China than side with them. True. Let's see. Callum, China has the industry, Russia has the resources. Otherwise, China is totally reliant on outside imports to fuel it. Billy, they could easily paralyze the U.S. with these balloons loaded with EMPs, then use the chaos to neutralize the ICBMs, carry on from there. Kingdom, China could be easily started with resources. The U.S. own over half of all civilian guns in the world. Half of all registered civilian guns in the world. I like to keep bringing that up because, yeah, there's a really industrial side to some of the American gun guys. Let's see, British Royal Navy tactics, the blockade. Yeah, a blockade can work, Callum. With a border the size of China's, it would be extremely difficult. I mean, look at how essentially penetrable the Ukraine border was for the guy who was going in and out, grabbing people, bringing supplies in. And he was just doing that in a car. Let's see. Earl Marku says, God bless the USA to Earl. Billy said that was an artist rendition. It does look like a spy package, though. U.S. was jamming the balloon the entire time, so I doubt it was actually successful. It may very well have been a test of their jamming capabilities as well. Marku, Chinese infrastructure is also literally crumbling. Maureen says, stop it, Crow. She was being wholesome. Good on her. Byzantine blinding in modern day might be a bit spicy. Byzantine blinding. I'm guessing that's some sort of torture thing. And I'm at the bottom of chat. Billy says they were most likely probing the military response, spying on signals, taking high-resolution images, probably scanning with ground-penetrating LiDAR. Yeah, the LiDAR, quite probably, given what's been said about the lasers in Hawaii, I could see that. So, let's have a look at this one real quick. I just wanted to have a look at the records of various shoot-downs. So this is from 15 hours ago. 13 hours ago. But what I want to do is look at, is there a way to organize this for older stories? No. Okay. I do dislike the fact that since I switched to Firefox, I don't have quite as much facility with it. Let's just try a couple of pages down then. September 9th from last year. Another Trudeau thing. Okay, here's a good question for you guys. Where are we here? Could the government really cover up UFOs? And at this point, we'll just kill the other screens, or that screen in any case, and you guys can let me know what you think. This is actually where I wanted to have the bit of fun. We've got about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe a half hour left before I decide to say, screw this, I'm out of here. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think there's any possibility that what was shot down in the Yukon was a UFO? And by UFO, I mean a legitimate extraterrestrial object. The idea being like the standard theory of, oh, it's an alien recon drone or what have you. Let's see. Odar is here. Hi, Odar. If we go by registered civilian guns, the U.S. probably has around 80%. No, that's probably true. Marku, if U.S. goes to war with China, I think there would be a lot of foreign volunteers siding with U.S. Let's see. Kingdom says if a war between U.S. and China breaks out, the ground stuff won't be much of a factor. It would be largely an air and naval war. Well, it's going to be American drones versus knockoff American drones. Let's be real. Ooh. Yeah, primed. I don't think that would be considered acceptable under the Geneva Conventions at this point. Billy says he doubts it was alien. To be honest, I do as well. I suspect it was probably just more Chinese, I was going to say junk, but test beds. Callum doesn't think it was Xenos either. And I think we're probably all pretty in concurrence with that. So we'll switch to a different question, which is where my idea of the fun comes in. And that's the probability of extraterrestrial life existing in general. We've got a lot of different people saying things like, what are the odds? Intelligent life probably exists on distant planets, even if we can't see it, or even if we'll never meet it. The Drake equation. For those of you who don't know, the Drake equation is a probabilistic argument used to blah blah English. It's not good for. It's not even all that easy for those of us who were born with it or born into it. But basically, the way the equation works is like this: the number of civilizations in the Milky Way with which communication might be possible, the average rate of star formation, fraction of those stars that have planets, average number of planets that could potentially support life. Basically, there's a whole lot of yada 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 to basically say, yeah, while it's generally a vanishingly small number, it's also vanishingly small in a massively vast universe. There's really no reason to think it's almost essentially a confirmatory equation where you basically look at all the possibilities and go, yeah, there's almost no possibility that humans are alone. Now, granted, let's see. It's more believable that China is doing testing. Odar, that's a free bingo. It's an actual UFO for 2023 bingo. Yeah, I've got the aliens come and wipe out all the governments on Earth for 2025 bingo. Vinland says, I think when it comes to fighters, China's biggest threat would be the J-20. I don't know what the J-20 looks like. The Xeno must be purged. Marku, the Canadian government being the first contact with Earth. I'd rather it be Russia, to be honest. I'd rather they were drunk on vodka than hammered on maple syrup and communism. Maureen says the truth is out there. That's absolutely true, and a great callback to the X-Files. Odar says when you look at statistics at a universal scale, practically anything is possible. Probability of the laws of physics being broken can be high too. And it depends on how you determine, how you term breaking the laws of physics. I like the way Star Trek did it, where they basically said, okay, no, we just warp things around us. And then there's also the way that Star Wars did it, where, yeah, it's a little more magical. They basically went interdimensional. No, wait, that's wrong. Because lightspeed in OG Star Wars, you were able to actually slam into things. What was the one? Farscape, the wormhole travel. And Voyager too, I suppose. Let's see. Prime Knight probably does. Are they a spacefaring race with hyperspeed tech? Likely no. Obviously. Callum says, if no one hasn't, check Arch's vid on China invading Taiwan. Good bit of fun learning. It may have been Arch that I saw, or it may have been someone else talking about the issues that China would face if they tried to go into Taiwan. And there's basically only like 2 weeks in the run of a year or something that they could do it, in terms of naval. Let's see. Marku, wasn't there a post some time ago explaining that Chinese fighter jets are as technically advanced as the jets used during the Vietnam War? Makes you wonder. Crow, assuming alien life exists, it's a bold assumption that they would want to come visit us. Amen to that. Vinland, the J-20 is a stealth fighter. They have one and working on another. Monkey, there are no life on other planets because we live in the simulation. So no monkeys on Mars. Gotcha. J-20 is a ripoff of the F-35. Not surprising. Crow says him being a simulation would explain his life. And it was at that moment that Ardent had the most horrible realization. No, I'm just kidding. Marku, jet tech being behind half a century doesn't really make China seem that much of a threat. Think about it this way. You can still kill somebody with a pointy stick if you have enough pointy sticks. Callum, if we ever leave our world, I just want a strong military that can protect us. And KTF? KTF, I know that acronym. Billy says, oops. Okay. Odar, contested naval landing is one of the most difficult military operations. The fact that D-Day was successful was no guarantee. D-Day was, as I recall, half expected to be a failure, if I remember how the various generals were talking about it. And, of course, Monkey goes, apes in space! Maureen says, oh, hush, Crow, it's not a simulation. God just doesn't like you. Oh, wow. Maureen just beating the poor bird with the Bible. And Crow says, apes in space needs to be made. I agree. Space Ape versus Cocaine Bear. It's another possible sequel. For those of you who aren't aware, Cocaine Bear is actually out, at least in limited theaters right now. It's not streaming. Fuck, do I wish it was. Billy, the CCP really wants the cutting-edge microchip industry in Taiwan. They could gain a stranglehold on vital tech. True. Well, no, they wouldn't. What would happen would be they'd have the grip for about 6 months till either the US, Sweden, Finland, one of the other Nordic countries, some country in Europe, or somewhere in Africa decided, you know what, fuck this, we're making microchips too, and you can kiss our ass. We have loads of sand. We can make silicon. At least I think that's how silicon making works. I could be wrong. And Kingdom of Vinland is right. There's no way that the U.S. would allow China to take over Taiwan. I'll kill them first. Good call. Galactic Republic Legionnaire slang. Galaxy's Edge series. Okay. Yeah, I'm from Buenos Aires and I say kill them all. But assuming that it's possible that there is alien life out there, and that seems a fair assumption, I would say that's probably an 80%, and I'm just playing with fun numbers at this point. Alien life, I'd say probably 80 to 90%. Intelligent alien life, I'll knock that down to about 65, 75. Intelligent to the level that we are, at least at our level of technology, probably more like 30, 25, 30% possibility. And the likelihood of alien intelligent extraterrestrial life that is past us in technology, I'll give it a solid 10% probably, just to play fair with fun. And Crow said he thought KTF meant keep the faith. I've also seen that as well. I think Klaus Schwab uses it for crush the farmers, but that might be wrong. Marku, I know, but jets running with that old tech don't really have much chance against modern radars and stuff. True. Crow says he's got to go record. Have a good day. Later, Crow. I'll be done in about 10 minutes or so anyway, so I'll probably... you're recording, not going live, so I'm going to assume you're playing Dead Space again. So I'll catch that later. Billy says, chips made under the control of the CCP will be inherently untrustworthy. Even if they allowed you to buy them, they would be a national security threat. Yeah, that's why I was so choked about Huawei being given any sort of access to Canada's 5G network, which, if I recall correctly, has been rescinded, but still never should have even been considered. The best analogy I can make is to think of the Five Eyes system as the intelligence version of NATO against China, where NATO was founded to prevent the physical threats of Soviet Union. The Five Eyes were meant to protect Australia, Canada, US, UK, and I believe New Zealand, though I may have that wrong and it may be France. But basically the Western countries against the, China. Callum says, see a Birdman. Kingdom of Vinland technology is the major, if not deciding factor in air combat. Yes. Odar, I find the other theory of we are the first life being interesting too. Yeah, and that's actually something I was thinking about last night while I was thinking about this story. The potential ramifications of humanity being the first to the stars. It's interesting. I mean, from a leftist perspective, we'd be expected to be the conquering, colonizing, brutalizing, genocidal bunch. From the pulp era, I would think we'd be expected to be the clumsy, bumbling, just accidentally stumbling into things sorts. Personally, at this point, I think we're smart enough that we would have very, very... I tend to take the Michael Crichton look and think we'd have very detailed plans and protocols that would also include lots of scope for improvisation and adaptation, just in case something really weird happened. Let's see. Monkey says he needs to stop being lazy and make at least one video today. Well, even if you just make it short while you're sitting on the toilet. Marku, also I served in Finnish military, so I'm going to make a bold claim that I know at least a little about what I'm talking about. It's funny you mentioned the Finnish military because I was watching the Shaymaster playing that wizard game earlier, and I pointed out that my Patronus would be Simo Haya with a 50 BMG. Kingdom says U.S. pilots can't get as much time to fly as they need, but even then they still get more flying hours than Chinese pilots do. True. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think... let me ask you a few simple questions here. Do you think aliens have visited us? Do you think aliens would visit us? And do you think that if they visited us openly, it would be amicable? Callum says, NATO was the military bloc of the West. Yeah, essentially. His mother thought it was the EU that had kept the peace since World War II. Oof. The EU didn't even exist until, what, the 50s? The European Union wasn't founded until November 1st, 1993. That was after the fall of the Soviet Union. Well after, if I recall correctly. Let's see. Marku says he's pretty sure the EU was started as a free trade union, not a military one. True. And that's what it's supposed to be now. The EU is, if I recall correctly, constitutionally forbidden from having their own military. That didn't stop various people from trying to get one. Ursula von der Leyen, if I recall correctly. Kingdom of Vinland, I think if we are the first species, we should understand and bear that great burden to be a worthy example for others to emulate. Hum's white man's burden. Let me see. Marku calls me based. Billy, remember there's no such thing as a civilian business in CCP China. Yeah, there's no such thing as non-government ownership in China. Every business of any import. No, it's any business, period. Every business belongs to the CCP. Every citizen belongs to the CCP. Otherwise, why would there be secret Chinese police stations in Canada and the US? Leveraged as a weapon, military-civilian fusion, I think they call it. Yeah, it's, to be fair, smart tactics. It's very smart tactics to have your civilian and your military industry working together. The problem is, if the government has control, and this is why I don't like communism, by and large, you have no incentivization for the civilian businessman to work hard and innovate. He's just going to do what he's told. He's not going to try to come up with something new. Where's the profit in it for him? Which is kind of ironic that something like the Kalashnikov was created under Soviet rule. But that was more of a necessity and talented individual who... It's akin to someone who's a writer having to get those words out of their head. And I think in some ways Mikhail Kalashnikov was probably like that. He had to work. And those are the people that I would most like to be able to go back and rescue from communism, is people like Mikhail Kalashnikov, who would have been probably on par with John Browning if he'd been free and in the West. I've got a few dropped frames, but the show's still going. Okay. Let me see here. No, not that one. Oh, there's a list of UFO conspiracies. Or have I... Oh, I'm sorry. I accidentally farted and forgot that chat wasn't rolling because I had rolled back to stop it. Pilots, NATO, CCP. Okay, so let's see. Marku about the EU. Marku then called me based. Billy, remember there's no such thing as civilian business. I talked about that. Lomax. Hello, Lomax. Nice to see you. Callum says to Marku, yes, when I told her that, she was surprised. Like I said, I'm worried about programs she went through in uni. Yeah. Stormy, to respond to my questions, goes, yes, no, yes. Good job. Or full spectrum warfare, Billy points out. Yeah, is the Chinese system. Yeah, talking about programming in schools, I mean, when I was younger, they did very little about communism other than to say that's bad, which was kind of ironic. But there was almost nothing said about Stalin or Mao or Pol Pot in my history classes in, you guys would call it, well, I just call it basic schooling. Basically primary, elementary, and high school. Secondary. And yeah, there was next to nothing about communism other than to talk about the philosophy as bad because it was a Catholic school, which is ironic considering the Catholic tithing system. But they made very sure to tell us how bad Hitler was. Yet, and this is a question I'm going to tackle at some point, probably on Rumble, they never did tell us what books the Nazis were burning, did they? Yeah. Let's see. If aliens have visited, Marco, if aliens have visited, they would have nuked us already. Maybe. Or maybe they just find us entertaining. Odar, have visited, maybe in passing, doubt they'd stop. Would want to now, maybe in the sense of, hey, look, the ant colony is starting to flicker. Yeah. Maureen says she thinks one of her exes might have been an alien. Kingdom says, I think they do exist, but I wouldn't blame them for wanting to avoid us. Yeah, I can see Earth being the south central of the universe. Let's be honest, Odar, the EU was created because Europe was jealous of the US's trading power. I could see that. Lomax, wait, are we talking about illegal aliens? In that case, yes, and no. Monkey is being cute with Maureen, suggesting that there should be probings of various orifici. Moving along. Kingdom says we shouldn't uplift others. There we are. Just be a good example for others to follow. True. Billy says they want an EU army. Yeah, they've been trying to get that. Marku, the fact that many people, especially in Europe, think that private companies are a thing in China worries me. Yeah, I don't understand it. Odar says the AK was a passion project of Mikhail. Plus, he was probably the most talented gunsmith of the USSR at the time. Honestly, he may very well have been the most talented gunsmith in the world at the time, especially given what he was working with. Marku says to Billy, if the EU army becomes a thing, I'm straight up defecting to the US. Yeah, understandable. Callum, even when I point out the facts to people, they still think China still has private shit. Yeah, they'll say silly things like, oh, well, China has millionaires. Yeah. Are they party members? Of course they are. They're party property. Let's see. Maureen, okay, says that made her laugh. Good job, monkey. Odar, and besides Mikhail Kalashnikov walked so Brandon Herrera could run. Yeah, with his AK-50 from the ATF. With his dog. AK was just cheap and reliable. Yeah, it's the reliable part that's kind of important there. Let's see. Kingdom of Finland, I'm happy it didn't happen, but I find the 80s conventional war between the Soviets and the US stuff like Red Storm Rising fascinating. Technically, if you look at Afghanistan in the 80s, the US and Russia were kind of fighting. Yeah, I hear you. Lomax, it was Hitler and Napoleon all the way. They did very little on Napoleon for us as well, if I recall correctly. Callum, my mom went through uni in the 80s, given what started happening in the West around that time. Yeah, long march through the institutions. Marku says he can see aliens have a reality show about life on Earth. Oh, yeah. No, Candid Camera got nothing on what the aliens are watching. Billy Blogs. How have we created a situation where people are appalled by the swastika, but hipsters wear Che Guevara t-shirts, hammer and sickle icons, and no one bats an eyelid? Yeah, that's very disturbing. Okay, so what I was trying to look at is unavailable. So we will just kill those two web pages. I'll throw the thumb up for just a second while I scratch my nose. And, yeah, so, what am I coming up on? Oh, I'm coming up on the hour anyway. Which explains why my coffee is so cold. But, yeah, I mean, if Marku says China has millionaires, Russia has oligarchs. China has oligarchs too. And they have oligarchs the same way that Russia developed oligarchs. Party members who enrich themselves. Which is really why communism cannot work. It ignores basic human nature. Greed. Let's see. Lomax says brainwashing to Billy. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say brainwashing. I'd use the term indoctrination. Let's see. Marku, try wearing a commie shirt in Finland, especially in a rural area like where I live, and see what I think I could enjoy rural Finland. Bug food in the West, North Korean treats feminists like one of their own. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing with communism. There is no point in which communism can work. Because, yeah, in theory, the idea is, oh no, everyone works together for the common good. Yeah, that's how Christianity works, but Christianity at least built in forgiveness for failure. Communism just punishes you. Generally, leftist communist, modern leftism, just punishes you perpetually. Let's see. Okay. It's just Marku correcting his spelling, which, yeah, I understood. So, yeah, folks, 5-minute warning. If you've got anything you want to ask me, obviously this is the Eternal AMA Day. So if you've got anything you want to ask, no matter how weird, by all means, feel free. While I drain the dregs of my coffee and look around to make sure I've packed everything I need. Finland says Finland sounds based. It does sound very based. Would Christian communism work? No, because you're still... What you're looking at there is a theocratic communism. Earth. Everything belongs to the church. Did the Pope shit on a golden toilet for nothing? It's funny to see Tanky simping for Superman Red Sun when the entire point of that comic run movie was that even Superman couldn't get communism to work. Yes, exactly. Not only that, but the moment he found out how bad communism was, he went, fuck this. Marku, rural Finland has a lot more in common with the US than Europe. Hell, my area has an unofficial nickname, Texas of Finland. Nice, I like it. Callum says he got nothing, he's going to head off, need to grab dinner for tonight. Take it easy, Callum, we'll see you later. Marku says there's lots of gun-owning good old boys around here. I like it. Oh, excuse me. Maureen asks what we're going to do for our date. Oh, excuse me. As has become common practice for Stormy and myself, I will be driving over to her place and staying for a few days. We're going to do adult things to each other. And the plan, either tonight or for Valentine's, is to cook together. We're going to make dinner together. Her kids will be around, so can't do too much. But yeah, it's mostly just spending time with each other. We really, really do appreciate each other's company, and being able to reach out and touch one another is really important to us. So, Billy says Islam and communism flirt with each other. Odar asks, will I be watching the Bowl of Super? Hand Egg doesn't really interest me most of the time. I'll tell you what, if New Orleans is playing, I still won't watch. The only time in my entire life that I've ever cared about the NFL was the year that New Orleans went almost the entire way. The Saints went almost the entire way undefeated to the Super Bowl. And Kizza, what have I missed? Pretty much the entire show at this point, Kizza. I'm going to be shutting her down in about 2 minutes. We were talking about the aliens shot down in Canada, and the various possibilities of communist versus theocratic aliens. And Odar was asking me if I was going to be watching the Super Bowl. As I said, I don't know who's playing. And I may not, I don't know. More like than not, I'll probably just spend some time hanging out with my lovely lady love. Let's see. Stormy says hello to Kizza. Lomax, would you like some sexier graphics on screen? Some art just spruced up, just a thought. It looks like it would be fun to polish it up in my software. Sure. I'm not really terribly picky. If you're offering, I'm certainly willing to have a look at it. I kind of like the really crude, kind of smashed together aesthetic that I've got going, but yeah, I think you can find me on Discord, so yeah, make contact and we'll work something out. Stormy says she can't wait to see me. Oh, and for the record, folks, when you hear me growling, that's all for Stormy. Though I do tend to have a fairly gravelly delivery anyway. It's part of the problem with the sound. It's part of why I have to keep increasing my volume, is because I tend to speak in the back of my throat. Let me see. Oh, dear God. Kingdom says there... Billy being 15 years old. Kingdom says there is a Skyrim and God of War cookbook, as well as a Fallout one. Oh, my good God. Marku, we'd be more based if the whole country wasn't run by one big city, Helsinki. Yes, we have the same problem here in Canada. The lack of an electoral college means that essentially 6 urban areas run the entire country, which explains why something like a handgun ban is possible. Because, bad people are shooting each other with handguns in Toronto. Make sure that guy living in the butt-fuck middle of nowhere Yukon can't have a handgun. Yeah, the guy whose nearest neighbor is like 30 kilometers away. What the fuck are you doing? Why can't he have a fucking 357 Magnum in case a grizzly comes charging out of the woods at him? Or, you know, a Chiapa rhino or something. Let's see. Monkey says, adult things. You're going to pay taxes? Turn all the lights off in rooms you're not using to keep the electricity bill down? Uh-huh. And we're going to wear sweaters instead of keeping the heater turned up. Kizza says, sorry about that. I've moved the last weekend, but I have good internet now, so I can host movie night again. Excellent. There is a strong possibility, if you're doing it tomorrow night, you may see me and Stormy there. Let's see what else is going on here. Odar says, thanks, I hate it. What was Odar's last comment? Will I be watching the Bowl of Super? Yeah, like I say, it depends on who it is that's playing. I may turn it on. I don't think I'm going to bother, to be honest. Sports ball has mostly lost its appeal to me as a regular thing. I've never been a big fanatic of it. I did win a shit ton of money betting on the Saints that year that I mentioned. Let me see. 100% in support of electoral college. Yeah, an electoral college or some sort of equalized representation system is definitely necessary. Kingdom of Inland says gun bans should be a local thing for the city. Yes, yeah, that's another thing I have an issue with is centralizing authority. And I'm actually over time, but I'll get this rant out. KC versus Philly. I've got no interest in watching the Chiefs versus Philly is the Eagles. Yeah, I've got no real interest in that. But thanks for the information, Odar. I do appreciate it. But yeah, as far as gun bans being a local thing, I am all for decentralization of power, of devolving power as local as possible. Yes, in the UK we've seen it work very badly for Wales, but Kizza says it's strictly a Saturday evening thing. Oh, the movie nights. Okay, excellent. In that case, then, I kind of forgot what day it was. But, okay, excellent. But yeah, as far as decentralizing power and giving local governments more power, for a while, quite a lot of us in the, I don't know, the commentary sphere that I kind of travel around in, we had been talking about city-states, and I remember the Lotus Eaters had done a piece about it, and it kind of caught fire in my imagination. But looking back, the issue becomes a little tenuous when you consider, okay, a place like where I'm living would have no ability whatsoever to govern itself if it had to also then collect its own taxes, run its own police force, blah, 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 blah. But if you had overarching government on a federal level that was responsible for only maintaining borders and infrastructure and collecting taxes voluntarily, then, well, maybe not so much with the taxes. I think the taxes should be collected locally and then shared to the federal or potentially up to the provincial, distributed as needed up to the federal again for the surplus. But this is something I'm just blue skying right now. Marku says Razor Fist made a video about that some time ago. Ah, yes. Talking about the Electoral College. Marku also asks if Vinland expects politicians to have a working brain or to care about regular people. This is one of the problems with democracy as it's being practiced. They don't need to care about people. And it's also the sort of the reverse of the argument I used when people were freaking out about Trump getting it. And this was back before I was pro-Trump. And I was never really anti-Trump all that much. I was more of an interested observer because I'm Canadian-ish. But my point was, you know, why are you people freaking out? The most time he's going to spend there is 8 years. What's the most damage you could possibly do in 8 years? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I see where I went wrong now. Wow. But, yeah. In any case, folks, let me see. What are we looking at here? Billy Blogs, I'll only keep an eye on it to see if any more elite athletes drop suddenly for no reason. Oh, yeah, certainly let me, it might be an idea to pay attention if anyone dies of coincidence. Kiza, decentralization only works with disciplined people. But if you have a monarch, and this is kind of where some of the monarcho-capitalism ideas I have are kind of leading, if you have a monarch who's in charge of the overall, and they have, let's take Canada for an example. If you have a monarch who's in charge of everything, and each province and territory reports directly to that monarch, that's 12, 13 people the monarch has to deal with personally. If you then have counties, parishes, whatever, the regional breakdown in Newfoundland is different than most other provinces. Most other provinces have counties. So if you have county reps who have to report to the provincial level authority, then that provincial level authority only has so much work to do. And then from the regional guy, then he's only got to deal with locals. So it kind of, you're looking at a very easy thing to handle. Because if someone dealing with the local authority has a problem that the local authority won't listen to or won't deal with, they can go to the next level authority directly, potentially personally. So as long as you keep the bureaucracy as limited as possible, one of the ways to keep that down is to make sure that the federal system doesn't collect taxes. It simply gets handed them. Let's see. Odar says that aged like fine wine. Yeah, right. Sounds like what the U.S. originally set up to be. Decentralization only works with disciplined people. Ill-disciplined areas need strong national leaders, aka monarchs. Yeah, and this is my point. Within their jurisdiction, the local authority is essentially the monarch. And given that they're the ones directly collecting the taxes, they're the ones who are going to need to keep the peace as much as possible. Now, if they're brutal, obviously, bad choice. You know, some dude up in the woods with a 50, off you go. Let's see. In any case, guys, I am over time, as I said, and I really appreciate all you guys showing up, even though I did start early this week. I'm thinking, actually, seeing the response that I got, I may start a half an hour earlier next week as well. I'll give it some thought over the course of the week and see what I think. But in the meantime, thank you very much for being here. I hope you're all having good days. I hope you continue to have good days. And of course, as always, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.